I never intended to become the kind of woman who commands silence with a glance. But the army doesn't shape women gently. It forges us. And after 34 years in uniform, I'd become steel, solid, sharp-edged, and perfectly polished. My name is General Rachel West, and for most of my life, I've been the ghost in a room full of voices. Present, commanding, efficient, yet carefully distanced. Most people know me as a hardline disciplinarian stationed at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. A no-nonsense architect of officer reform and the first woman in this post to implement the Direct Emotional Resilience Program for cadets. They say I care too much about the mission and too little about people. That's only partly true. The mission is what saved me from drowning in my past. I enlisted at 18, the day after high school graduation. I hadn't even told my parents. My father was a Vietnam vet and steelworker with hands like anvils and a temper to match. My mother taught 3rd grade and lived for Sunday service and sweet tea. They wouldn't have understood that the Army wasn't just a career move for me. It was a lifeline. What I never told anyone was that I was already running from something far bigger than small-town boredom or a broken home. At 16, I got pregnant. He was older, a college boy with a smooth voice and empty promises. When he found out, he disappeared. I carried the child alone, quietly swallowing every emotion, hiding my growing stomach beneath oversized hoodies. My parents never knew until it was too late. The adoption was closed. I never held her. That sealed version of me, the girl who gave up her baby to strangers, is someone I left behind the day I took my oath. The Army gave me a new name, new purpose, and a fierce kind of peace that came from order and control. Over time, I rose through the ranks like wildfire through dry brush. Officer, commander, colonel, general. I had no husband, no children, no personal entanglements. I didn't even keep pets. I loved the Army like people loved families, because for me, it was both refuge and redemption. Until this year. Until recruit Olivia Daniels. She arrived 3 weeks ago, a quiet 17-year-old who had lied on her application about being 18. Her eyes had the same iron-willed sadness I recognized in the mirror every morning. I had no idea why she pulled at something in me, something I hadn't felt in decades. She was average on paper, fair physical scores, a decent academic background, no notable family or support structure. Her foster file was redacted, standard procedure when a minor's history involved trauma. I had a policy of not getting involved with recruits on a personal level, but something about her silence, it didn't feel like defiance. It felt like grief. The first time I spoke to her was during morning inspection. She stood straight, hands at her sides, eyes locked on the wall just above my head. Name? I asked, already knowing it. Daniels, ma'am. Recruit Olivia Daniels. Age? 18, ma'am. I raised a brow. She flinched. You know we verify birth records, recruit. Yes, ma'am. But I let it go. I don't know why. I told myself it was because she was under my command, and I needed time to investigate. But the truth was harder to admit. I didn't want her sent away. Not yet. Not until I understood the strange familiarity I felt around her. The signs began accumulating like hail against a window. A gesture here. A glance there. The way her voice wavered when someone mentioned Oklahoma. How she watched me, not in fear, but with this raw curiosity, like a question she was too afraid to ask. Then came the breakdown. It happened during a stormy Thursday evening drill. Rain thundered down like artillery. The recruits were soaked and miserable, huffing through obstacle reps. I was inspecting from the sidelines when I saw Olivia collapse beside the crawl trench, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the mud. I rushed over before any instructor could reach her. Recruit, get on your feet. She didn't move. Daniels, do not make me repeat myself. She looked up, trembling, and what I saw in her face wasn't weakness. It was agony. Ma'am, she gasped, her voice cracking. Please, I can't. I crouched beside her, shielding her from the pouring rain with my body, a gesture so against protocol it made my own heart race. She clutched my wrist. Her hands were shaking like dry leaves in a windstorm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" I asked, my voice quieter now, the steel fading. "What are you sorry for?" Her eyes locked with mine. "For everything. For being born. For ruining your life." Time stopped. "What are you talking about?" I asked slowly, each syllable trembling between us. And then, barely audible through the downpour, she said the word that shattered 34 years of silence. "Mom." I froze. My first instinct was denial. There was no way. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But the truth rushed in like a flood. I had never seen her baby photo. The adoption was closed, but something in her eyes, in the curve of her cheek, the dimple near her mouth, was as familiar to me as breath. She let go of my wrist and curled into herself, sobbing now. "I found the file a year ago, before I aged out of the system. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. The only name listed was yours." I stood, rain still beating down on my cap, my chest a minefield of emotions. I hadn't cried in years, not since the day I left that hospital without her. But my vision was blurring now, the rain indistinguishable from tears. How did you find me?" She wiped her face, voice hoarse. "I saw a photo from an article about women in military leadership. I thought it was crazy, but I couldn't stop wondering, so I enlisted." I couldn't speak. "Why didn't you want me?" she whispered. I knelt again. My hands found her shoulders. "I was 16, I said. "I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't even get to hold you. The system said it was better if I didn't." Her sobs slowed, replaced by a stillness I couldn't decipher. "But I thought about you," I continued, "every damn day. And I told myself it was for the best, that maybe one day you'd find a better life than I could give." We sat in silence for what felt like hours. The storm passed. The recruits were dismissed. Only we remained, two shadows beneath a steel sky, tethered by something stronger than blood, truth. I walked her back to the barracks personally, not as a general escorting a recruit, but as a mother protecting her child. By the next morning, word had spread. Rumors always moved faster than facts on a base. But I didn't care. I had spent decades pretending my past didn't exist. Now, it had shown up in combat boots, asking for answers I didn't know how to give. That night, I stood in my office alone, staring at Olivia's personnel file, her foster history, the trauma reports, the shelters, the failed placements. She had survived everything the world threw at her and still chose to wear the same uniform that saved me. That had to mean something. For the first time in my entire career, I closed the door, sat at my desk, and cried. Not from guilt, but from awe, because the daughter I thought I lost had come back to me, wearing my boots. And she was stronger than I ever was. The next morning, I sat at my desk, the early light just barely breaking over the parade grounds. My office smelled of coffee and worn leather. I had reviewed hundreds of files over my career, but none felt heavier than the one lying open in front of me, recruit Olivia Daniels, my daughter. I still couldn't quite say it out loud. There was no official Army manual for this. No field guide on how to handle finding the daughter you gave up 3 decades ago in the middle of a training cycle. The Army trained you for war zones, not emotional landmines. And yet, here I was, an undefeated general caught in the crossfire of my own buried past. She had stayed silent after our encounter in the rain. I checked in on her that morning under the guise of routine inspection. She stood straight, boots polished, uniform damp from sweat, not rain this time. Her eyes didn't meet mine. I paused longer at her row than I did with the others. The air between us was heavy with unspoken truth. But I knew the system. And more than anything, I knew the risk. If anyone with authority decided our relationship was a liability, both our careers could be over. Nepotism, chain of command conflict, favoritism. They'd tear her apart and they'd quietly show me the door under the guise of early retirement. I wasn't ready to lose either of us. By noon, I called a private meeting with her. She walked into my office like a recruit reporting to a superior, not a girl confronting the woman who gave her away. Her back was ramrod straight, but her hands trembled slightly. "At ease," I said gently. She didn't relax. She just stood there, eyes fixed on the wall behind me. "Have a seat, Olivia." The use of her first name made her flinch. I realized no one in this institution ever said it aloud. She sat, cautiously, her palms flat on her thighs. "I reviewed your record again," I began slowly, like every word had to be tested for landmines. "There's no indication of disciplinary issues. You're showing progress in your drills. Physical aptitude remains consistent, although under the bar in endurance. But what concerns me is your emotional profile." She bit her lower lip. "You're not in trouble," I added quickly. "This isn't a reprimand. It's a conversation." A silence stretched between us like an ocean. Finally, she spoke. "I shouldn't have said anything," she whispered. "That day in the rain. I'm sorry. I didn't come here to ruin your life." "You didn't ruin anything," I said. She blinked, disbelieving. I leaned forward. "I spent my entire life building walls. Discipline, control, excellence. They kept me from feeling the pain I buried a long time ago. But when I saw you, I felt something I thought I'd lost the right to feel." "Regret?" she asked. "No," I replied. "Hope." That cracked her. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, like a soldier trained never to show weakness. I wanted to reach for her, but I didn't. "Not yet." "I didn't expect you to be this," I said. "Strong, determined. You didn't come looking for money or sympathy. You signed up to serve." "I wanted to understand who I was," she whispered. "I thought maybe if I wore your boots, I'd find my footing." I nodded. I couldn't speak. If I did, my voice would crack. "There's protocol to consider," I said eventually. "You and I can't have special treatment. No assignments, no transfers, no favors." "I don't want favors," she said. "I want to earn everything, like you did." "You already have," I said, and this time my voice did break. We sat in silence again, but it wasn't tense. It was reverent, like standing on sacred ground. After she left, I knew the path forward wouldn't be easy. I needed counsel, and there was only one person I could turn to: Brigadier General Marcus Fielding, my closest friend and former commanding officer, a man I trusted not just with my life, but with my truth. That evening, I invited him to my quarters. We sat on my porch in silence for a while, the cicadas loud in the humid Carolina night. "Something's on your mind, Rachel," he finally said. I handed him a glass of bourbon. He sipped, waiting. "She's my daughter," I said. He didn't flinch, just nodded once. "Thought so," he said. "You knew?" "Suspected, the way you looked at her. Like something you didn't know you'd lost just walked through your front door." I exhaled. "What do I do?" He took another sip. "You let her be who she came here to be, a soldier, and maybe a daughter, but not both at once. Not yet. You give her space to stand on her own. And if someone finds out," he shrugged, "let him. You've served honorably for 34 years. If the Army can't handle your humanity, that's not your failure." It was the first time I felt a sliver of peace. Weeks passed. Olivia improved. Her PT scores climbed. She volunteered for every extra drill. She pushed harder than anyone. I stayed out of her way. I never acknowledged her in public beyond what protocol required. But we found each other in quiet moments. A glance across the training field. An extra meal tray placed where I'd find it. Once, a note tucked in my locker, *, "You can't erase the past, but you can write the next chapter." Asterisk the day she graduated from basic, I stood at the back of the crowd, sunglasses hiding my tears. She looked radiant in her dress uniform, saluting with precision and fire. After the ceremony, she found me near the vehicles. "I'm being assigned to Fort Bragg," she said. "They want me for medic training." I smiled. They chose well. She hesitated. "Will I see you again?" I looked her in the eye. Every time I look in the mirror. That night, I opened the small wooden box I'd kept locked for decades. Inside was a photo of me at 16, hospital band still on my wrist. I placed it beside my medals. The Army taught me how to fight, but Olivia, she taught me what I was fighting for. I never thought I'd have a legacy beyond rank and ribbons. But now, my legacy wears a uniform and marches forward with her own story. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud, not just of what I built, but of who I brought into the world. My daughter, my soldier, my greatest victory.